I've known Quentrel for, a couple of years now. He's very active in the community to say he's very active in the community would be a huge understatement. Quentrel is a singer, songwriter, and award-winning anti-violence activist who 8 years ago founded Stop the Violence, a movement and also now a clothing brand. In 2019, he was a recipient of the Senate of Canada 150 medal, and he was also nominated and later named as one of the world's top 100 most influential people of African descent under 40, receiving the award at the UN headquarters in New York. Pretty influential, I would say. And he's been in the press a lot lately. So I know he's been pulled 6 ways sideways by all sorts of speaking opportunities and journalists. So we're very lucky to have Quentrel up and awake at this time in the morning. Quentrel, over to you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, it's an early morning. I'm definitely not a morning person, but I went to bed early yesterday to get up for this. So I'm happy to be here and happy to share my story and just hopefully help you guys in any way, figure out ways that you can, help with everything that's been going on in the world. So my story started 8 years ago, as Alex said, and it was a tough one. I was downtown with my cousin, ended up leaving and going home. And basically when I got home, my father called me and said, Kaylin was killed. And I basically didn't know what to do. Kaylin, a little background on Kaylin. Kaylin's my first cousin, best friend, grew up together, went to Army cadets together, elementary, junior high, high school together. We did a lot of things together. And basically, it hurt me in a way that I've never been hurt before. And so I'd lost cousins before to violence. I had lost loved ones to, cancer and such. But this was different, and to lose someone to violence, I was at a loss of words. I was going through a lot of pain, had a lot of anger and frustration. Why him? Why now? The week before he was killed, he had just given his mother away at her funeral. And so I want to do something different. So after I presided over his wake and sang at his funeral, I decided to do a Stop the Violence Day March. And that was my way of grieving and my way of getting through that tough time. So I had the march a month after he was killed, and hundreds showed up. Nova Scotia's weather is so hard to predict. It was supposed to be sunny, ended up being a rainstorm, and I was a little nervous if people were going to show up, but hundreds showed up in a rainstorm from ages 3 to ages 85, and walked from Sullivan's Pond in Dartmouth all the way to the Halifax Commons, which is about 5 to 7K. So it was definitely a powerful moment, and seeing all the people that came out, but there were so many different families that had been affected by violence that showed up. And so after the march and after hearing the voices of people in the community, they told me not to give up and not to give up hope and to continue to do this. Because, after the march, I was like, this is it. I need to, kind of but ended up staying with it. And let me tell you, over the years, it's been a lot of work. And, a lot of people see me in the media and see me always smiling, but there's a lot of stress that comes with being an anti-violence activist. You get a lot of negativity, you get, some threats, but it further motivates me to do more. And so I've been able to do a lot. And I say it as a privilege and honor because I've been able to travel to schools and to events all across Canada and in the US, speaking and sharing this message. And it's crazy because even though my message is from here in Halifax, there's other people around the world that have a similar message. So to hear me spread the message, I gave them the platform to speak out. And so it was good to hear so many stories. So with everything that's been going on, I know everyone's seen the George Floyd stuff all over the media and everything, and the racism and such that has been going on for I say centuries. Canada's not immune to what's been going on in the U.S. Yeah, we may not have, unarmed Black men being killed on video, but myself personally, I've dealt with a lot of racism. I've been racially profiled is a big thing here in Nova Scotia, where, driving my vehicle, I've been pulled over, just questioning why I have, this vehicle, and I remember one time driving my father's Cadillac, and being pulled over, and the officer thinking that I was a pimp. When I was the youth pastor in North Preston, I had a Mustang, and I was on my way up there and was followed and then pulled over, and embarrassed because I was pulled over and my car was searched and was told that it looked like a drug dealer's car that they had put a notice on it. So to be handcuffed and put outside your vehicle, and to see community members, stopping and asking what's going on, and your car being searched, and you don't have no reason why. It was definitely a sickening feeling for myself, and that's when it made everything real for me. Ended up meeting with the chief of the RCMP and the officer and community members, and we ended up hashing everything out. But it's things like that people don't think happens here. It really left a bad taste in my mouth, but the good thing is that I don't label all cops as bad. I don't I don't label a force. That's just like saying, one bad apple spoils the whole community. So I have a lot of friends that are, cops, RCMP and HRP. So I didn't label the whole force, and been able to have some good relationships with police officers over the past few years. But my first running with the police wasn't that when I was older. It was actually when I was 10 or 11, and I was downtown Dartmouth playing hide and go seek with my cousins. And I remember the police officer car pulling up and basically getting out and telling us that, we were apparently did some damage to someone's house that wasn't even in the area. It was actually like at least a 10-15 minute walk, and said that we fit the description. It was 5 young Black guys. I'm 10 years old, don't know what's going on. And I remember the adults, family getting upset at that time, and we didn't know what was going on. So as I got older and, I heard about the story, and I heard like different details, we figured it out. But going through all of that, it really taught me a lot, and how to deal with everything that's been going on. I know we've been having a lot of protests here over the past few weeks, and I've been standing at every one, except probably one. And when I got there, a lot of people asked me to speak, and I've been hesitant to speak just because when you go through being racially profiled and you deal with racism on a daily basis, it's hard. And I try to tell people, I can't put you in my shoes for you to understand and know what it feels like to be a Black man in society. From me applying for jobs when I was living in North Preston with my parents at a young age, with North Preston on my address and not getting a call back. And then I just changed my address and just took North Preston off and put Dartmouth, and got a call back from that same employer. All I did was put my first name, which is David. I'm David Jr. And Dartmouth, same resume, nothing changed. My middle name's Quentrel, which I go by. But get a call back from that employer, and I walk into the interview, and you see Quentrel resume sitting on the side with an X crossed out. And you ask them, they were like, "Oh yeah, we interviewed," and I hadn't been in there. And so, calling out that employer at that moment, and letting them know that, like, this is, stereotyping and racism and profiling, and you never even met the person. And so going through those in life have further motivated me to continue to speak up and continue to use my voice to make a difference. When I say it hasn't been easy dealing with violence and being a violent advocate, most of the threats and everything that I get, negative things are geared towards racism. I get messages like, you should go get a job and stop speaking out because, Black people get all these handouts and such. And the crazy thing is that I work full-time for the federal government as a senior analyst for veteran affairs. So getting those type of messages and that we don't have a gun problem here in Halifax, that we have a Black problem. If we get rid of Black people, then the violence would stop. And Black people are predisposed to violence. And they're all criminals and things like that. And those are most of the messages I get doing what I do here in Halifax. But I don't allow it to get to me, and I don't allow it to discourage me, and I don't share it on social media and such or in the media because I don't want to give it that exposure that it doesn't need. I don't like spreading negative things. I don't like spreading hate. I'm trying to, be a positive light in today's society. But over the past few weeks, it's been really tough. Watching a man lose his life on video, especially as a Black man, it really hurt in a way. I've seen countless videos. I've seen, this is not the first one. You hear about Breonna Taylor, you hear about Trayvon Martin, you hear about Eric Gardner, you see all these videos and Philando Castillo, and so this wasn't the first. And so where we're at now, and the reason why I think the world got upset is because we're in a pandemic, and so being in a pandemic, everyone had no choice but to see what was going on because the world's at a standstill. And it brought everything to the forefront, and everyone was like, okay, enough is enough. So it's been amazing to see so much support and so many people standing up and voicing. My thing is that when it's not in the media anymore and when it's not a hashtag, will we still be, doing the work behind the scenes and still speaking up and still trying to make changes to the law and policies when everything is done? So that's where I'm at. I'm always about the work behind the scenes. So a lot of people are like, I don't know how you have time to do this and do that. When things are important and things are making a difference to make the world a better place, I always make time. Just 24 hours in a day, we can always do something. So it's been a lot of work. My whole thing is that I want to make the world a better place. Because I'm around the kids and I'm in the schools and I'm doing mentorship, and I have a 9-year-old son that I want to see grow up in a less violent society and he doesn't have to deal with racism, and he doesn't have to deal with the social injustice and inequality and all that stuff. So that's why I continue to work so hard, and that's what keeps me going. And then with dealing with violence, I hear the stories from the victims that have survived. I've been around the families that have lost loved ones, and Nova Scotia had a mass shooting a couple months ago, which it broke me. Being here and doing the work that I do, I take violence when it happens personally because it's the field that I'm working towards trying to decrease. And so I really hurt for the families and such, and it was a shocker that happened here in Nova Scotia, and it only keeps me grounded and keeps me motivated that there's so much more work to be done. So that's why I continue to do what I do. Over the years, Stop the Violence grew into something that I never expected. It was just, a march. Then it started, to clothing brand as well. And then it started with, doing the speaking engagement. And then we have a Christmas toy drive that has raised over 2,000 toys in the last couple of years. We do a school supplies drive for kids in the summer with a dance party with Halifax Regional Police and HR and Fire. as well, which is really fun, where people donate a lot of school supplies for kids going back to school. And then we have Stop the Violence Day, which was 2 days ago here in Nova Scotia, where everyone does red and performs an acts of kindness. So the support has been amazing. And the thing about it is that, you know, I've gone a lot of places, but I love our people here in Nova Scotia, and how they support things, and how they want to see change. And so the last couple of weeks have shown me a lot with the thousands of people that have been showing up to the protests and such. It's amazing. But where do we go from here? And that's where I'm at, is that, you know, we have to continue to work and continue to put pressure on those in places to make the changes that are needed to be done. I wrote a post a couple of weeks ago called Dear White People. And, you know, it was not to blame, you know, the white race for anything, but it was a cry for help. Basically, us as Black people have been raising our voice for centuries, and you know, protesting and doing all this, and our voices are going unheard until a voice of privilege speaks up. And that's when the changes start to roll and things start to be heard. Our voices start to be validated. So basically, I wrote a post just to get those voices, and get those voices to speak up. Those lawmakers, those politicians, those people in policing, and then just you, the public, to continue to speak up and support us and help us. When we yell Black Lives Matter, I know a lot of people that I had to educate on saying all lives matter. We're not saying that white lives don't matter. We're not saying Asian lives don't matter. The reason why we say Black Lives Matter, and the reason why we don't like when people say all lives matter, is because currently the Black lives don't. So all lives can't matter if Black lives don't matter currently. And so we continue to raise our voice in that way, because we just want to matter. We just want to be equal. We just want to be treated the same, and been fighting this fight for centuries. And so I'm not going to give up the fight with violence in our communities. And that's violence, because violence affects all. So, you know, I'm out here fighting. I told someone the other day, I'm out here fighting for all races and everything in the streets with the violence and everything. So can you fight for me and fight for my right for equality and all this stuff. So my story was not supposed to be here. I want to be a singer and a lawyer when I was leaving school, but I'm here as an activist, you know, and working for the federal government. But, you know, it's become who I am and what I do, and being able, you know, I've got a lot of awards over the past few years, and you know, the recognition, and it's been amazing. But, you know, the greatest thing that I've ever achieved is hearing that I've changed and impacted lives. One of the more important things that I do that a lot of people don't know, I do a mentorship program with inmates. You know, I started with 7 inmates that were locked up doing different crimes. Most of them involved violence, and basically they could call me anytime and, you know, get mentorship from the outside in, be that positive ear, or just to listen. And you know, so when they get out, they give back by, you know, doing their parole hours to Stop the Violence, help me. And it's been amazing to see, you know, the changes in people, and, you know, parole officers telling you that, you know, you really helped and really changed the way this young man thinks and such. So it's been one of the more powerful things that I do that I don't publicize, because that's just the way I am. It's keeping that confidentiality with who I'm dealing with and what I'm doing, but also just all about the work. And so when you're all about the work, you don't worry about, you know, anything being promoted and stuff. So it's been amazing, but it's been rewarding, but it's also been very stressful at times. You know, I've been held at knife point. I've had, you know, been threatened with a gun. Those are things that a lot of people don't know, because we don't want to publicize the negative things that, you know, come along with this. But the good thing is that I got a lot of strong people in my corner, and my parents really raised me to be strong. I'm the oldest of 8, so I had no choice. But to turn out right, they disciplined me, but they taught me a lot of things that really helped me in life today, and I'm very thankful for my parents. So with that being said, the violence, that's happening around the world, I'm not going to stop until I can, make a difference. The racism and social injustice and inequality, Canada's not immune to it. So what's going on in the States, we're having it here. But it's, it may not be the killings, but we're still dealing with the racial profiling, the systemic racism in the education system and justice system. So basically, if I can tell you, everyone can do their part. I always tell people, everyone can do something. And so, on Stop the Violence Day this year, 2 days ago, I had, asked Nova Scotians to do an act of kindness towards someone of a different race. So many times we don't know where that person comes from. We don't know their story. We don't know what they've been through. But if you get to know them, you'll know why they hurt. You know why they do this and why they act this way and things like that. So you can do that every day. It doesn't have to be just on a day. And I was telling people that, be kind and, get to know people of other races, other backgrounds, other religions. We're so judgmental as human beings all the time without getting to know people. So, let's change the narrative and then also look at their issues that they're dealing with within their communities and such, and see how you can help and see how you can be a part. That's what I'm about and always will be about, helping and making a difference. It hasn't been easy. You never really get over losing someone to violence. I can witness that, but you just learn to take each day as it comes. So that's where I'm at, This year has been a different year. I had a lot of things planned, but COVID-19 hit and changed everything. But at the same time, I'm just blessed that, we have the support and that this whole issue with Black Lives Matter has been brought to the forefront during this pandemic, despite all the tragedies that we've had. So thank you guys. If anyone have any questions for me, you can ask away. I'm easy to reach. I've been getting a lot of messages and emails, so I've been trying to reply to everyone. It may take a few days, may take a week, but I will get back to you.
Okay, wow. Thank you, Quentrel. That was powerful. So I'd like to open it up to comments or questions. Anybody? Let me get us started. You mentioned that people have been asking you what they can do, and I suspect that's probably what is on everybody's mind here. So what's next? What do we do? As you look around the virtual room here, you can see that there are a lot of people who are not of Black color, but who are here because they do want to make a difference. And so I guess the first question I'd have for you is any suggestions on what we could do next?
Yeah, so I had a couple meetings over the last few days, and I know a lot of people have been, asking me for links to support Black businesses and things that are going on, Black initiatives and such. Also, if you have a Black community that's near you or such, find out the issues that they're dealing with within their community. There's many issues that communities are dealing with, and basically that's where it's going to come from. If you want to help, find the issues on the communities around you. So once you find those issues, like I was talking to EHS, and I was talking to another, I think it was bank and everything, and how I was like, growing up, basically we never had anyone come in and teach us about banking and stuff. That was things that we learned if you went to university. So a lot of people in the Black community know about banking and doing those simple things. So, if you see a banker coming in, that you can be a banker besides, going to play sports. But you can support those Black businesses, find the community, the Black communities that are around you, or, talk to someone that's, of a different race, a Black race that are in your area and basically figure out the issues that their communities are going through. You know, every community is going through different things, and find out ways to support that way. With everything that's been going on, we can continue to speak up right now. We can voice our opinions on social media, but also what they've been doing, you know, a lot, emails, you know, behind the scenes and such are going to lawmakers and stuff to change the policies and such. And if you work for companies that, you know, have policies around, you know, being a minority, relook at them and see how, you know, you can change them to get more people, more minorities into the workplace and into your field and such. So there's a lot of things that people can do. It's just, you know, figuring out, you know, what are the issues in your area. The systemic racism and such, you can continue to educate those around you. You know, a lot of people have been coming to me that, you know, that are not Black and saying, oh, you know, you guys are going through this and you're going through that and this is all this. And I'm like, you don't have to educate me. I'm a Black man. I live it every day. And so be able to have those uncomfortable conversations with those people around you, you know, the family members and the kids and all that stuff, because I live being uncomfortable every day going through this. So if I can be uncomfortable every day, you know, you taking a minute out of your day just to have those conversations with family members and talk about racism and talk about, you know, how it's not good and educate them on that and everything. So those are things that you can do that really help. So those are a few things. There's many more. You just got to figure out what the issues that your communities are going through in your area. But you can educate people on racism, social injustice, and inequality, and then in your companies try and change the policies around that.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'm going to open it up to the floor.
I have a comment to make. Quentrel, you know, thanks, man, for that. And you know, you said it all, but you know, listening to it, for me, it has to do with the small and the bigger. There's the small picture, there's the big picture. You know, when I was in London, Ontario, attending Weston, a very simple thing like sitting on the bus with another person. So one of my colleagues was sitting on a seat. Actually, there was a white lady sitting on a seat, and my colleague was going to go sit there because obviously that was the only one left. As soon as he sat on it, this lady flew from the seat as if my colleague was, of course, my colleague is Black, as if he was this, you know, I don't know. It was so embarrassing. You don't even know how to feel. The only reason why you can say, you know, why the lady won't share a seat with a Black person is, I don't know what, you know, what it is, but I mean, just a simple thing like that, right? And the other thing is, like you said, sometimes they call for more policing in North Preston. It's not about policing. It's about helping the people there. I mean, exactly. If the people, you know, they always say the proverbial that the devil will find work for the idle hands. If everyone wakes up, they got something to do, they have to go to work. And if you do same for most communities, you don't call the police into that community. If North Preston is not safe, South End, you know, West End Halifax will not be safe. South End Halifax will not be safe. When I was coming to Nova Scotia, people want me not to go to the North End. Of course, I've been living in the North End ever since. You know, I purposely went to the North End anyway, and I still live here and I love it. And why? The only reason is that they said there's a street there called Goringen Street. It's actually got a gun. And the only reason is that there are a lot of Black people who live in the North End, and therefore it is like this and it's like that. So the issues are, there's the smaller picture, the bigger picture. If you're working in a workplace, just, you know, advocate for that kind of equality. You may think that your voice don't matter, but it is. I've seen it, I've experienced it with my eyes, you know, trying to be a lawyer here. you get told all kinds of things. Not because I don't know the law. I know the law. I've been called to the bar, but I am just told something different, simple because I'm Black. And of course, I have an accent. You have no idea how many people told me that. But when I went to the courtroom, I speak the law. I just like every other lawyer who has been called to the bar here, not not because of my accent or whatever. We have to be different sometimes, and it's being different is okay. So if we all do our part, bit by bit here, it will go a long way to help get people to understand, put the message there that it's fine to be who you are, and it's fine to ensure that you don't just have a policy that says equality in employment at the top, but let it reflect on the factory floor. Because if the policy is there and nobody implements it, it's just there, gathering dust. So I think your message is very clear, and I think that you don't have to stop because there's no way to stop. This is the time. Keep the heat. Thanks, bro.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Being someone that I've experienced that same kind of stuff on the bus, getting on the bus and people won't sit beside you. I had an old lady, and I it was crazy because one of my coworkers at the time was on the bus, and they're white, and they actually seen it, and they were like, "How do you feel?" Like literally, there was no seats left, and so I'm sitting inside the seat, and there's a seat at the front, and there's a senior that gets on. I was like, "Okay, ma'am, do you want to sit down?" Like I got my bag on my, and she wouldn't sit down. As soon as one seat came across, open up by another white person, she sat down. And my coworker goes, "I thought she said she didn't want a seat." And I was like, it was because it's not the first time I've experienced that. There's times that, people will not sit beside me because, I'm Black. And so going through those experiences, you're right. It's the little things, doing the little things and speaking up. Like, they say North Preston, like, I did a documentary about 5 years ago called North Preston, A Look Past Stigma. The young lady that did that documentary came up North Preston to meet me, and she was up there for about 15 minutes before I got there with over $1,000 of equipment. And she's standing there, and she's nervous because she heard so much stuff in the media about North Preston. All of a sudden, community member comes over, "Oh, are you need any help?" They helped her out, brought her right to the community center and everything. And she's like, ever since she came into the church and everything, she's like, this was one of the most welcoming communities that I've ever been in. But she would have never stepped foot in there with everything that the media portrays. Mm-hmm. And so, North Preston is no different than South End, Halifax, and all these other places. They just get plastered right on the screen because, if you notice, and this is a big thing, media plays a big role in how we see our Black communities. And if you notice when we have Black young men that are being killed and how their face pops up and they put the one when they look like they were a gangster and they're known to police, and it's like a reason why they were killed and stuff. No, they lost their lives. It doesn't have to be that way, but the media plays a big role in how people see communities. And so being from, North Preston, and my mom's from East Preston, so I'm all Preston. I've heard all the stigma around there. I've heard the stereotypes that I'm supposed to be a pimp or some kind of drug dealer. I've heard those, I've had people tell me that, like, I always thought that you would know, and so, we have doctors, we have lawyers that come from the community. We have a lot of entrepreneurs. We have a lot of great people. Every community has bad apples, but it tends in the media that the Black communities get highlighted and be like, plastered that it's a bad place to go. But you're correct. I'm not gonna stop doing what I do. It's an everyday thing, and I said if it takes my lifetime, then so be it. So be it.
Thank you, Godfred. Valerie, you have to unmute.
Last night I had the opportunity to participate in a religious organization's discussion on anti-racism. And there was a panel of three Black people from Ontario who spoke to anti-racism. And one of the participants pressed the panel and said, "Give me something concrete that I can do. Tell me something that I can do." And one of them stepped up and said, "You should contact your municipal government, your municipal political representatives, and indicate to them that they have to work to demilitarize the police." And quite frankly, I had never thought of that as an active step that Joe Average could take to bring some pressure to the situation. What's your feeling on that, Quentrel?
Yeah, so when they just had a protest not too long ago for defunding the police. When people say defunding the police, it doesn't mean we're going to get rid of the police force. Basically, it means taking the funds and everything and allocating funds elsewhere that's needed, because police officers are not social workers and dealing with the mental health cases and all this other stuff. And so many times, they need other training. There should be cultural training that, you're not going to deal with so-and-so from here, Black man over here, then you're going to deal with someone else, because you got to understand the area that they're from and how they grew up and everything. So defunding the police doesn't mean that we're getting rid of the police force or demilitarizing. I know we just had council vote that we didn't need this military vehicle that Halifax is about to give $500,000 for. I was like, we've never had a situation where we needed an armored vehicle like that. Basically, my thoughts on it is, call it to your municipal government and speak up and so they can allocate funds elsewhere, because they put so much in policing, and we just want them to do their job and do it properly. So call it to your municipal governments and speak up on that issue. Defunding the police doesn't mean we're getting rid of the police and because we need policing, but we need good policing, and we need a consistency of good policing. And so they need training, and they need, to be able to know how to filter out certain people that haven't been representing policing with a good name. So, yeah.
The three panelists last night were quite emphatic about that whole defunding the police, and they disavowed any allegiance to that belief, and they talked about just changing the culture.
Exactly.
And I guess defunding it does speak to that, but more importantly, I think it's something concrete that we can do to call up members of our police commission and say, you've got to look at being less military-like in the delivery of your duties.
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
I have a question. Is demilitarizing the police the same as defunding?
No, from what I understand, it's two separate things.
So demilitarizing sounds like it might be changing the culture.
Exactly right. Yeah,
defunding sounds like it might be reallocating some of those funds to address some of the social issues.
That's exactly right.
You got it.
And they did a little bit of that in terms of, doing a different policing model for our Indigenous neighbors, and employing social workers within the police operations. Yeah, stuff like that. So this panel last night went to great pains to say that, no, it's not the same. Defunding is not the same as demilitarizing. It's changing the mindset.
The culture and how they go about things and how they approach each community and everything, and having the right resources to deal with each situation in those communities.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Chris, I think it also means that it isn't always necessary to have the police in full riot gear and shield when they're at the Pride Parade or at the, and I mean they've changed that. I mean, it's just that we've weaponized them and put them in equipment that makes it look like we're at war, and so they need to change what group they're in front of, what they're doing to create an image in the community. Chris, I have
sorry. Go ahead. I was just going to add to the defunding thing. I was listening to one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter, and like you said, in Ontario we have somebody who was in a distress, and it was about mental health issues, and the police were called, and the news that came out was that the person fell off a balcony. So the question is, should the police be first responders in cases like that, or mental health or social workers? So my understanding of it is this, that if, let's say, 70% of the budget or 56% of the budget goes to the police in the city, should we allocate that to homelessness and other areas to empower the community to prevent crime? There's plenty of literature there that there is all kinds of relationship between poverty and crime. And so do we focus, some of the focus go into that, or pump all the money into the policing? In any case, and I'm not saying we need a police, but most of the time when you see the riot gear and all that, it is after the fact. And so we had all these police in Portapique after a number of people have been slaughtered. And so again, not to belittle the police, but what I'm saying is that most of the time, things happen and then the police come in. So there should be a way to get the appropriate service provided to deal with the issue.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a quick question of Quentrel? I thank you for all of this, of course. Is there something very specific that we can do to support you or your organization or an organization that you might be working with? You know, if you said, listen, you know, if
someone has a noise behind their mic.
Can everybody mute themselves, please?
I think it's Luke at the moment. Luke, maybe you need to mute yourself.
Could I ask a question for Quentrel?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you. So is there something specific that we could do? You know, would you say for this group, you know, here's the next March, or here's a project I've been trying to get funded. Here's something like very specific that I know I need, or that someone I'm working with needs. And if you could help, that would make a difference.
I can actually get back to you on that, because I've been having meetings over the last couple of days in finding where we want to really go. I like to have a consensus. With myself, with Stop the Violence, I don't really need like funds per se, because I have a lot of connections behind me. I've never really had to pay anything out of my pocket since I started Stop the Violence, because of the people that are in my circle and people that have been affected by violence that own companies and such. But there's, right now we've been talking about putting more into education for the kids. Like, so, you know, like the Delbour Buddy Day organization here, the Black Educators Association that does tutoring programs in the Black communities and such like that, that are always looking for funds and such. But so I'm trying to compile a list and see where people can really support that's going to make a difference. I don't want you to support an organization that really you're not going to see the difference. So one of the big things for me is education, especially for our kids. So that's where I'm trying to focus at.
Thank you. I think
Both
Roxanne.
of those organizations are in our service area. Delmore Buddy Day and the BEA are both on Goddard Street, which is our service area.
We've got Roxanne and then Lorianne. Roxanne, go ahead.
Thank you. Quentrel, I feel like I'm right smack in the middle of what's going on, because I'm based in Washington, D.C. I've been on the various marches. We read out, it was actually shocking to me to have all the names read out of people who have died at the hands, under suspicious circumstances, at the hands of the police. So this demilitarizing of the police, I think, is quite important here in the United States. I'm both British and American, so I've seen the two different ways of policing. Yeah. I wonder, because I'm also involved, that I'm not a mother, I'm involved with Mums Against Guns here in the United States. I wonder if there's a perpetuating sort of creation of added violence because everybody assumes that there is a gun involved in things. I think that part of this program also has to look at getting rid of as much guns as possible and demilitarizing the U.S. police through that. Oops, I think we lost our...
He's had to step away for a minute.
Oh, no, Canada Post just dropped off a package, so.
Oh.
Go ahead.
So my question is, are in the United States, I mean, other than keeping everything in the focus of the media, because media has a tendency to, something's fashionable and then they forget about it, and we've obviously got to keep this in everybody's minds. But is there some sort of self-perpetuating situation here in the United States, which is going to make it difficult for us to demilitarize our police, which are clearly over weaponized? I mean, you just have to see the marches that we've had in Washington to see that they're over militarized. It's beyond ridiculous.
So I've been talking to a lot of my friends in the States. You know, I got a lot of friends in New Jersey and all those areas of surrounding. One of you guys' biggest issues is the gun laws, especially in certain states. And then one of my guys told me, he's like, there's not much you have to do to get into policing in the States. So when you don't have much training and you can have, they don't really do background checks and everything on you in your life, that plays a big role. And when you have people that aren't really trained properly, you're going to have circumstances that, because I was like, why is it happening at a high rate that people aren't armed? Or we're watching these videos of people with their hands in the air getting shot and, you know, all these things. And it's because people that are going into the police force already have anger and already, you know, have it out for a different race and stuff like that, because there's no background checks, there's no kind of training to see what's going on, and they're always looking for policing. And then you have the gun laws, and the gun laws in the States, you know, I think it's Florida that has their stand your ground, where you can, you know, kill someone if you feel threatened. And that's a sad law, where you can literally take a life if you feel any kind of threat. It was like, so when you have laws like that, it has to change coming from the top. And we all know who's at the top currently. And, you know, I'm not a political person, but, you know, it has to come from the top, and it has to change that way. And laws have to change. The U.S. have a lot of different things, but also just in certain states, they could change their own laws, like governors and such. So that's where you got to have to speak out there. But good on you being a part of that organization and trying to make a difference any way you can. But a lot of your circumstances are from basically, you know, those laws and not having the right proper training for policing, and anyone can get into policing in the States. Because one of my buddies there told me, he's like, man, if I want to go be a police officer tomorrow, I can go be a police officer tomorrow and don't have to worry about any background checks. And I was just telling him the story when I worked at the casino. Like, I was like, my interview with the casino, I had to have a one-on-one with an RCMP officer just to work at the casino. And he brought up all the background check on my family members, because I was going to be working in a cage with money. If someone comes in and robs, what are you going to do? And that was that interview decides if you go in or not. Mm-hmm. And if we had these type of conversations and making it harder to get into policing, where they check your background and see your history and see how you are as a person, rather than just write an aptitude test and go through training, I think things would change.
Okay, thank you. Folks, we're at 8:30, actually just past 8:30. That's our normal stopping time, but I know we have at least one other question. If Quentrel is available to stay with us, I told him we normally wrap up at 8:30, but if you're available, we can carry on. And for those of you who still have questions, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer them. Yeah. So you're good to stay?
Oh yeah, I don't start work until 9:30, so.
Okay, great. All right, Lorianne was next.
So this is just a follow up on the support thread. Quentrel, thank you so much for coming today, making time. I really appreciate it. Of course, I know we all appreciate it. but we're an incredibly diverse club in terms of the professions that are represented in our club. So I want to put a challenge out to the club to, you know, part of our core value is actually being very generous about the gifts that we have, both professionally and personally. So I think we should reflect on what we do, and then align with the things that you need in terms of the list. So for me personally, I'm a growth coach, and I focus on change and helping individuals and organizations sort of materialize what they want to do. So I have some business coaching clients and, you know, some individual coaching clients, and I have a whole mentoring package. So some of the things that you've said, I can probably connect with you and share my tools or share some consulting time or whatever. So I'm just throwing a challenge out to the club to actually reflect personally and professionally around the gifts that you bring, and then what that generosity looks like, because change isn't going to happen unless we actually translate it into practice.
Mm-hmm. You're right. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Lorianne. Billy's next.
Good morning. I have more a comment, Quentrel. Thank you very much for your comments. But the question of what is it that we can do is one that's on many, many people's lips. Let me just take a minute and say, for those of you who are Rotarians, as a Rotarian, I'm speaking to you. I heard a presentation by Ian Risley, who was a past RI president, and he was talking about the issue of women. And he basically said when he became a Rotarian, he did not know that women were not allowed in Rotary. And he said, if I had known, I don't think I would have been a Rotarian. He said, but I didn't notice. Now, he then later found out, of course, that women were not allowed. And of course, women won the right to become Rotarians by taking it all the way to the Supreme Court. It was not easy. Now we have women who are Rotarians, and still there is a glass ceiling, a limitation on women to really move into, to become fully participant in at every level of Rotary. It has taken many, many years. In our clubs, across really every community, Rotarians are among the most influential and individuals in a community, among them. I would like to charge your club, now it's not, I don't try to make a judgment, but your club to take a snapshot of yourselves and to look and see how much diversity really exists within your club. So rather than taking a stance of only doing something for somebody else, which in some ways can be seen as paternalistic, we who are doing something for someone else, which is not a bad thing, it's a great thing, but also what are we doing about ourselves? And let us look at, are we representative of the communities in which we live? And do we have a broad reach of diversity? Now, RI has come out with a wonderful diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. Would to God that we would implement it in our own local clubs and in our own local community. I heard one of your members just say that we are a diverse club, and she was talking, I think, about skills and capacities and that kind of thing. And I think that's wonderful, and I think that's probably accurate. I don't know the particular makeup of your club, but I suspect that it may not be reflective of the broad range of diversity that exists within the greater Halifax community. And so I would invite you as one step that you could take, a definitive step, to really look at yourselves, look at a club health check, look at some of the materials that RI provides, and really look at how you can really shift from where you've been to a community, an organization that really fully reflects the diversity. And in that way, I think you will be making a significant step, because now, as the Rotarians in your community, very respected, looked upon with great honor, who have had a history of doing good things in your community. To welcome people of a variety of backgrounds makes a statement in and of itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. If I could just respond to that. We do pride ourselves as being diverse, but you're right. We have a ways to go. The club was formed in 1989, and we've always prided ourselves as having gender parity. But I recently looked at our stats, and in fact, it's not true. We have 42% of our members are women, and 58% are men. We've also always prided ourselves in having 35% of our club under 35, and that's also not true, at least not anymore. So just from those two perspectives, we have some work to do. In terms of cultural and ethnocultural diversity, I think we've been making some inroads. But again, there's a lot of work to do. So thank you for that. I think it's a call to action that we can take and can take readily, and it's within our power to do it. So a good reminder for us to do that check. And I'm going to turn to Adrian, who is the incoming president, and I think it's probably something that she will want to work on as the new board comes in a few weeks.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Quentrel. This has been a great meeting. I guess what I wanted to say is that I think our club has had intentions and tried to act on our intentions, directing our efforts to an area of our community that we believe needs support. And by virtue of that, our lives have intersected with the Black community in Halifax. But not necessarily in the way that it can in the future. So our intentions are good, and continuing to be intentional about what we're doing is critical. And also understanding what the privilege that we've lived in our lives and what that really means to us and how we come to any event or any project. It's not a criticism as much as it's a vacuum or a gap in our knowledge and understanding. And I think that this today can be the beginning of something where we move forward, not just in our local projects or international projects to try and stem some of the tide of racism, but also into gaining a much better understanding of what is going on in our community. And so I just hope that, out of this will come maybe a discussion group or something within the club, and keep our feet to the fire, if you will, about really delivering on the intention to improve the lives of people, and particularly the Black community in our community. So thank you for being here, and thank you for helping us to stay on track with this.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
What to do next, and I know that's the big question. And I mean, it's easy to want to look for something that we can do immediately and quickly, but I think Billy really hit the right point there, that we need to not look for something quick and easy that we can do, but really take the time and the commitment to do some introspection and to look at ourselves as a club and, our activities and the activities that we're supporting. I know we have a desire to be a diverse club, but I don't think we have done the work on the inclusion side to be able to support that. We can't have effective diversity, or we can't welcome diversity into the club if we're not ready to be very inclusive. And not that there's bad intentions anywhere, but I think we have a lot of work to do on that side. I think there's also some work to do in reflecting on how we're supporting the Black community in Halifax, which I know is something that we really want to do. I think, I mean, kind of from what I see is though we have a tendency to support groups and organizations serving the Black community that are run by white people. So I think, you know, I think we have some time to take, I think we have opportunity to take a look at the groups we're supporting locally and also internationally. Like we have a big problem with allowing organizations to come and speak to us, and we support organizations overseas. Well, we support organizations that are working in Africa that, you know, we're allowing people to come into our club and give presentations and show us demeaning pictures of Black people with, like in the areas that they're doing work. And I think we really have an opportunity there as well to consider like what organizations are we supporting and what are we going to, you know, require of those organizations in order for us to continue to support them and also to support anti-racism work. So I think there are a lot of things that we can do as next steps. And if we take the time as a group to kind of you know, to absorb resources and materials that are already out there that are telling us what, you know, what we can do and how we can support this work, I think as a group, you know, we can come to some good conclusions about actions that we should take.